Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a little bit of technical analysis on Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency markets. And as you can see before you here on our chart, our friend Bart Simpson has decided to stop by for a second day in a row, except this day he has something to say. He is saying, eat my shorts. And in today's video, I'm going to be laying out exactly why Bart Simpson here might actually be wrong. The shorts might not be about to get eaten, the shorts might be about to actually rise, because Bitcoin, as we're going to see in today's video, is sitting under some very major resistance levels. And sure, while if Bitcoin does get above these resistance levels, it is going to be spectacular for the price action, and it will send Bitcoin rocketing 10 to 15% up. I'm not totally convinced that Bitcoin is going to be able to break through these levels of resistance, and I'm going to be showing you exactly what they are and why they're so important in today's video. So if you guys enjoyed today's video and you want to see more of my friend Bart Simpson here on the chart in the future, definitely consider dropping a like, hitting that subscribe button, and smashing the notification bell, guys. It does help out the channel when you do it, and I would be appreciative if you did it. So without much further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. Of course, I do like whenever our friend Bart Simpson stops by. I prefer for him to be upside down for his own torture and for our gratification. But nevertheless, that's neither here nor there. Let's get on with the technical analysis. As we know, Bitcoin had been in this falling wedge for a very long time. Bitcoin had been trending to the downside ever since about halfway through December, when Bitcoin had a very major rally up here to around $4,250 or so here on the Coinbase chart. And ever since then, Bitcoin has been moving to the downside, and we did actually see a bullish breakout of this wedge. And from a longer-term wedge like this, you would expect to see a little bit bigger of a breakout than this. But over the last 24 hours or so, as you can see, Bart's head has started to taper off here a little bit, and he's actually started to move to the downside. The chart has started to start correcting a little bit, and the technicals aren't exactly looking all that bullish anymore. Like I said, we're going to be looking at that here in just a second. Let's go ahead and get CoinMarketCap up. I had the channel up instead of CoinMarketCap. Anyway, Bitcoin is currently down by about 0.76% over the last 24 hours and is trading around $3,626 with a daily volume of around 3 billion. As I think I mentioned in yesterday's video, Ethereum has actually flipped into XRP again. Ethereum and XRP have been in this kind of battle for the number 2 spot. They've been trying to conquer that queen position here on the cryptocurrency CoinMarketCap, and currently anyway, Ethereum is winning. It's only down by about 0.5% when XRP, is down by 1%. Total Litecoin's down by about 2.5%. Overall, the market is rather red, but we do see some double-digit gainers, for example, in Coinkomodo and MOAC. The vast majority of the market, probably about 60 to 70 cryptocurrencies, so maybe I shouldn't say the vast majority, are in the red today. The volume's still doing pretty well. You guys know in yesterday's video, I talked about the volume a lot and how important it is. And here at the outset of the video, I also want to clarify something about yesterday's video, because that video ended up being a lot more controversial than I thought it was. Guys, I'm not, in that video, if you watch that video, I was not wishing ill on Bitcoin, because I think if Bitcoin went down to $1,000, $2,000, or whatever, I still think Bitcoin would be able to bounce back. And if it went down there, I don't think it'd stay down there for very long, because so many people like me would be buying a ton of Bitcoin. So I don't think Bitcoin would stay below $3,000 for very long. And when I said the numbers like $10 or $500, I was making an example out of that. I don't actually think Bitcoin's going that low, nor would I exactly want Bitcoin to go to $10. Actually, I was being a little bit exaggerating a little bit. But anyway, let's go ahead and continue on with this video. Like I said earlier, Bitcoin is kind of tapering off here over the last couple of days, and that's not what you want to see after a breakout, because we can kind of see the price actions following a chart somewhat similar to that. After you see a breakout like this, you want to see the chart kind of following something like this and starting to trend to the upside before you start to see that major Bart Simpson pattern to the upside, and we see Bart comes in to save the day. But right now, Bart looks like he might be about to come into record day, because Bitcoin is tapering to the downside and not moving to the upside. A good example of that was right over here. Bitcoin broke bullish out of this little consolidation pattern right here, started moving to the upside, and then after it broke out, it started trending downwards. This is almost always the nail in the coffin for a breakout. Whenever you see the trend start reversing after the breakout and you start seeing some bearish price action come in, that's very rarely going to lead to good things. That's just something I've noticed from when I've done all my technical analysis, guys. You guys know I work in the market every single day, and I see a lot of patterns play out on many different charts. I see them on Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, XRP, all these different charts. Typically, when you see that happen, it's not a good thing for the market. Now, with that said, it's obviously not a 100% indicator. Nothing is. It's still very possible that Bitcoin just kind of jumps up to the upside here over the next couple of days or starts trending to the upside. But think about it. How weird would it look, and how unusual would it be for Bitcoin to just go straight to the moon right now after we started trending to the downside? That wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense, and if that did happen, you would say that it might be because of manipulation, because obviously the market is starting to favor the bearish side rather than the bullish side. So keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and zoom out to the daily chart. I want to start showing you some of these technicals that I was talking about in the title and in the beginning of the video, because there are actually a lot of technicals that are showing major levels of resistance just above Bitcoin at the moment. And like I said earlier, if Bitcoin can get above them, it would be very bullish for Bitcoin, because some of these are very major levels of resistance. But I'm not so inclined to believe that Bitcoin is going to be able to do that right now, because I think the bulls, even though they had this little exuberant rally here back on the 8th, I'm not convinced they're going to be strong enough to continue that in the way that they're going to need to get through these levels of resistance. One of those levels of resistance out here on the daily chart is none other than the 50 simple moving average. I've talked about this in one previous video, but I needed to mention it again because it's continuing to develop. As we can see, the 50 is actually curving down here and giving us rather strong resistance around the $3,630 level or so on Coinbase. And if you look at Bitfinex, of course, it's going to be just a little bit higher than that, up around $3,750 on Bitcoin. But nevertheless, the point is that Bitcoin is getting some major resistance on the 50 simple moving average. And as we've talked about before on the channel, the 50 has actually proven to be a level of resistance in the past. Right here, we had a level of resistance actually immediately after a breakout as well. We saw the breakout, and the breakout started getting resistance on that level. We have seen this kind of thing happen before. This moving average actually tends to be a lot stronger on altcoin charts, interestingly enough, but it still is relevant here on Bitcoin. We can see there's a lot of markets. There's a lot of trading going on around this. We saw some resistance over here, some resistance in the region over here. It's one of those moving averages that people need to look at, and it's one of those moving averages that Bitcoin is going to respect, and that's one that we're going to be looking at. One last thing I want to look at out here on the daily chart actually has to do with the stochastic RSI, because as we can see, the stochastic RSI has crossed and looks like it's going to start moving to the downside. Typically, since the stochastic RSI is a momentum indicator, or a momentum oscillator even, a lot of times when it starts moving to the downside, that can sometimes be a premonition of something. One last thing that I want to mention out here on the daily chart is that the last two candlesticks are indeed red. If we were to bring out our Heiken Ashi, you guys know I'm a big fan of Heiken Ashi. Heiken Ashi has just turned red. As you can see, we were green. We are now red on the Heiken Ashi. That's a very big warning sign. If you guys are in the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy, which I highly recommend, there's an entire video dedicated to Heiken Ashi, and there's a good reason for that. It's because Heiken Ashi is a very strong indicator of rallies and downtrends, and when you see a color change in the Heiken Ashi and it sustains for a couple of days, like this over here, what didn't really count, but when you see a color change in the Heiken Ashi and it's able to sustain for a couple of days, like back over here, when we saw it change, stayed green, we went on a nice big rally. When it turned red over here, we went on a nice long downtrend. When you see a change on the Heiken Ashi, it's almost always going to be a sign of something to come. So watch out for that. I'm not trying to spread FUD. I'm not trying to be overly bearish, but I do want you guys to understand that a lot of the technicals are actually pointing bearish right now. And as someone so astutely put in the comment section yesterday or the day before, there's not a whole lot of bullish news going on right now. There's not really a short-term bullish catalyst at the moment. There's not even really a great short-term bullish technical catalyst that we can look at. So in typical bear market fashion, it's more likely that Bitcoin's going to go bearish at the moment. Let's also look at the 4-hour, because on the 4-hour, there's something interesting that we want to look at as well. And that would be that over the last couple of days, the MACD has actually turned bearish. As you can see, the MACD got very exuberant here, rallied very high up here to around 60 to 65 on the MACD. It hadn't been up there in a very long time. The last time was back over here in January, and we have seen it start to correct. And if you guys are wondering why I didn't mention the daily MACD, it's because while it is bullish, it is starting to close in on itself. It's kind of the signal line here is catching up with the MACD line. But on the 4-hourly, the MACD is currently bearish and is pointing to the downside. Stochastic RSI is down on the floor. RSI is pointing to the downside. And if we come to the hourly chart, it doesn't get a whole lot better, because even on the hourly chart, as I mentioned earlier, since Bitcoin's kind of trading sideways and curving downwards a little bit, the MACD is actually very bearish on the daily RSI, and has been so for quite some time, ever since the rally actually ended. And you tend to see a bearish on the hourly chart. You tend to see some kind of bearish cross in this period of right after a bullish rally. So that's not really all that uncommon. But if Bitcoin had started trending to the upside earlier, like I talked about, then we would probably see a bullish MACD on the hourly chart right now, and that would be a very bullish sign, telling us that Bitcoin might be about to go to the upside. I think the easiest way to illustrate what I'm talking about, guys, is what I mentioned earlier. How strange would it look for Bitcoin to just go on a rally right now and start moving to the upside after trending downwards here? If Bitcoin does start moving to the upside and does go on a new rally, what's probably going to happen is that over the next couple of days, we might see a small bearish correction, and then we trade sideways and then start moving up. Or we might see some more sideways trading, and then we'll start trending to the upside in some fashion like that, right through the Eat My Shorts sign. Either way, it's going to take some time before Bitcoin moves bullish, if it moves bullish at all. Now, just because I drew Bart Simpson here doesn't mean that I necessarily think Bitcoin's coming all the way back down here to $3,360 or so. In today's video, I'm not going to get into price targets for the bearishness. I just want to lay out why I'm slightly more bearish. I'm actually a little bit more than slightly bearish on Bitcoin. I'm probably about 60 to 65% bearish on Bitcoin at the moment. That's where I would put myself, at least for the time being. Now, this is a developing market. In 12 hours, that might change. You guys know how this works. The markets do tend to change, and you have to change with the markets as quickly as the markets do, or else you're going to get left behind. So it's very important that you're able to change your opinion. That's not the sign of a bad trader that a lot of people think it is. It's actually the sign of someone who's able to change their opinion in light of new evidence very quickly, which is actually extremely important in markets. And to leave it off, I want to show you guys one last level of resistance that has been plaguing Bitcoin for quite some time. If you guys remember back way early in 2018, if you guys are OG subscribers, you guys have been here for a year now, then you will remember back in early 2018 that I was talking about a downtrend of resistance that was just plaguing Bitcoin. We saw that there was a downtrend of resistance over here with the all-time high connecting this all-time high and these points right here. We saw this downtrend of resistance, and this downtrend of resistance just would not leave us alone. And then when we finally broke through it, it got reestablished right there. And I talked about this so much. I talked all your guys' ears off with that downtrend of resistance because it was important. And when Bitcoin did get above it, and we did actually see that Bitcoin was able to get away from it and it was no longer valid, we went on a nice little rally. And interestingly enough, I think it seems like we're kind of repeating market history here. We're repeating market structure because we have this to contend with. As you guys can see here, let's actually draw this on the Bitfinex chart so we have a clean chart. As you guys can see here, Bitcoin is currently sitting under a major downtrend of resistance. We have one touch over here. We have one touch right there. We have a second touch right there. We have a third touch right there, in fact. And now we are trending downwards, partially because we're staying under this downtrend of resistance. This is what I was talking about, guys. If Bitcoin is able to get above this downtrend of resistance, the 50 simple moving average, a couple other levels of resistance I didn't get into in today's video, one of them having to do with the 20 exponential moving average. If Bitcoin is able to get above those, it's going to be very good for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going to go on a rally because it's going to be breaking what I call the convergence of resistance. That's another concept we talk about in the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy. We have a whole video dedicated to that, in fact. If Bitcoin is able to break through this convergence of resistance, we have a bunch of resistance, that's all that means, then it's going to be very bullish for Bitcoin. That's going to be very exuberant for Bitcoin. But more often than not, Bitcoin is not going to get through that resistance, and it's instead going to cause Bitcoin to turn bearish. So tell me in the comment section down below, guys, what you think about that. Do you think Bitcoin is going to be able to get above this downtrending level of resistance? Do you think Bitcoin is going to eventually break bullish out of this consolidation pattern that we're talking about here? We're going to be talking about that in a future video. Tell me what you think about that. And also, tell me what you think about all the other levels of resistance that we looked at, including our oscillators like the MACD and the stochastic RSI. Anyway, guys, that is basically going to do it for today's video. I do hope you are all having a good day. Ha, got you there. Anyway, guys, that is basically going to do it for today's video. I do want to thank each and every single one of you for watching as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.